Good morning to all of you. My name is Jim Ellert, and I'm the director of CEEMAN IQA accreditation. Joining me today is Jiva Zimash, who many of you know from correspondence. And I'm also pleased that we have with us also Professor Derek Abel, who is the
right here.
chairman of the CEEMAN accreditation system. The main purpose of this webinar is to provide you with some additional guidance on preparing CEEMAN IQA SARs or self-assessment reviews. Towards the end of the session, we will have a question and answer session. And Jiva, perhaps you could indicate the procedures for this.
Yes, thank you. Hello, and thank you all for joining us today. We will have time for your questions, so please feel free to write them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom window. You see the Q&A button, so you can submit the questions there, or you can also just type them in the chat. We will see them and we'll try our best to answer them all. In case we will run out of time, we can also send you the written answers later on in the email. Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn things over to Derek. As I mentioned earlier, Derek is the chairman of the CEEMAN IQA accreditation system and also the author of a very important manifesto that outlines the values of this accreditation system. Derek is going to start us off with some comments related to relevance, excellence, and the dynamics associated with the accreditation journey, basically providing you with the foundations of IQA assessments for accrediting business schools. Derek, I turn it over to you.
Okay, Jim, thank you. I think I've been involved with this accreditation for more than 20 years. You know, it's a long time, but it's never been stationary. And we've always been thinking, you know, what it is we really should be looking at and for. And this manifesto, which Jim mentioned, which I wrote because I thought, you know, here it is. And Shiva, I want to get it in the middle of the screen. It's actually called Manifesto Changing the Course of Management Development. You know, so we have a kind of mission with the accreditation, which is not just giving a stamp on schools, but trying to help schools change course. So you may wonder why this. And the reason is, it says in this manifesto, and I do advise you to read it, not because of the SARs, but just because it may help you. It's pretty clear to the board of CEEMAN, we're a board of about a dozen people, everybody signed off on this manifesto, that a lot of management education is going in the wrong direction. So what do I mean by that? I mean, management, I'm going to be a bit outspoken now. Management is not a science. Management, if anything, is a conceptual, is primarily a conceptual. It's not science in the sense of like physics, you know, where equations can be used to find the right direction. It's a conceptual. Leadership and management are largely conceptual, and it's rich in concepts. But what we see, not just in Central and Eastern Europe, which is kind of our home base, but also in the United States. I came from, I'm not an American, but I spent 15 years in Boston a long, long time ago at the Harvard Business School. And what we see in the United States is the same drift away from practice to sort of the idea that management is theoretical, and people talk about management science. I'm not very impressed with that because I say it's very rich, conceptually rich, it's theoretically rich, but these theories and concepts come from practice. They're not applied to practice. They're not bits and pieces of disciplines and a bit of marketing and a bit of finance, and then you kind of learn all those things and then you try to apply them. It's the other way around. Practice education and practice research means that you actually start from the practice end, trying to figure out, you know, what it is that managers might need conceptually to help them find their way through this enormously complex, navigate their way through these complexities, especially today, which is getting more. So what we found was that a lot of schools, they put research above teaching. You know, that can't be right. Universities and schools are fundamentally there to help their students, and the research should be behind that. So, you know, we found that a lot of research is going into these journals, which really are read not by managers, but by academics. So there we were worried again. We feel in the CEEMAN that we should be doing things which managers can use. The research should be read primarily by managers. The teaching is to help students and managers, if you're in executive education, to do a better job when they get back to their companies. That's what we kind of feel. So all of that is in this manifesto, and it's online, and you don't have to get the hard copy. And there's a short version. This is about 30 pages, and there's a short version of 5, which will be enough for you. But it's a good starting point if you're doing an accreditation self-assessment report, because in there you see what we're looking for. And we've boiled it down to 3 things. Jim mentioned these, but I'm going to elaborate on them a bit, and I'm going to pass it back to Jim, just giving you the big picture. The 3 things are relevance, excellence, and movement towards the future. Well, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for schools not necessarily have arrived. I think the CEEMAN is a bit exceptional. We're not sort of rating things to say you have to have exactly this, and if you don't get the stamp. No, we're looking for schools who are on the move towards the right direction. And if we see the things that you're on the move towards these things, that's good, because it's a long road. It's not so easy what we're talking about. And it's particularly not easy for young faculty. Many come out of doctoral programs. They really haven't spent much time in a company, so they don't know what it looks like. And all of these things have to be learned. So these 3 things: relevance, excellence, movement. So what is relevance? And I'll be more specific now and tell you what we're looking for. Relevance means relevance to practice. Number 1. It has to be relevant to the people who are actually out there running companies, changing companies. It has to be relevant. What the teaching and the research has to be relevant. So number 1, to practice. Number 2, it has to be relevant in the markets where you operate, because, you know, it's not all the same. If you're sitting somewhere in Poland or in Gdansk, you know, it looks different than if you're sitting in Moscow, or if you're sitting in New York. It's not the same. So we're looking to see whether the school is doing the kinds of things that managers in their own market care about. So that's a kind of a second level. And the third level is it has to be relevant to the present and future, not to the past. So much education is kind of looking back, you know, and that's sometimes you have to look back to look forward. That's okay, but it has to be relevant to what's coming up. Managers need to be able to understand what's coming up. So that's the third thing. And the fourth thing is it has to be relevant not just to the companies and their business, it has to be relevant to the society, because the society is suffering all over the place, and we've kind of added this fourth leg. So that's relevance. And you might ask, so what's excellence? It's different. Excellence is the word standing is excellence. We're looking for schools that stand out from the others in their markets. You know, that's different, because excellence means you're one of the better schools. We're not looking for the absolute best, but you're on the way in that kind of club of good schools in your market. You don't have to be, you know, excellent compared to those great schools that we all heard about in the United States, but you have to be excellent in the markets relative to other providers. You have to stand out. So we're looking for measures, of how schools stand out. One obvious measure is, what kind of share of the market do you have? If you have a little teensy-weensy bit of market and other schools have a much bigger share, it means you're not standing out. So we're looking also to see on what basis you differentiate yourself from other schools. How do you stand out? What is your special position in the market, which gives you the right to say that you are excellent? It can be many things. It can be in management, it can be in classroom designs, it can be in the kind of faculty you hire, and so on and so forth. And that's the excellence. The excellence is about relative standing, and the movement is, are you on the way to the things that are in this manifesto? And because it's a long journey and it's not done overnight, and we're very much aware of this, that if we see schools that are kind of committed with a vision in their plans, and they've set down the things that they would like to get to in the future, that's good. That's what we like to see. And the things I've mentioned, these three things, relevance, excellence, we need evidence. We don't want to, just say, you don't just say, yes, we are relevant. You have to tell us how you're relevant, and there's 4 dimensions, I said. And you know enough about business systems, that all of them, you can, of course, look at teaching and research. Look it in the eye and see whether it's relevant. But you have to ask, is the things behind the scenes, do we have in place the right competences and resources to be relevant? That means faculty, very strongly faculty. So when we do our accreditations, we're looking to see whether the faculty is relevant. Are they thinking about practice and so on and so forth? If you can provide evidence, so much the better. I don't think Jim will be talking about this. It's not a form-filling exercise. It's trying to give us some appreciation of where you are on this road towards excellence, relevance, and to the future. So those are the things. We do look carefully. We look back at resources and competences, but we look even further back at what I call kind of the guiding principles, your values, your educational philosophy, your mission statement, your vision of where you're. These are very important, because if these things are not in place, you're not going to be relevant and excellent and on the move. So we do go back and look at that. And we try sometimes to go even forward to look at impact. When we do the visits, we try to talk to companies and see whether the things you're doing as a school have impact. So if you can give us some clues about these kinds of things in writing your SARs, don't just fill up forms, but give us clues that you're on this kind of track, that would be great. I think, Jim, that's all I wanted to say at the moment. It's just sort of the bigger picture of this. Yeah.
Derek, thank you very much. On my side, I'd like to start by emphasizing that IQA accreditation only applies to broadly defined schools of management or business.
Yes.
If your university has diversity of academic faculties and departments, for example, including other academic departments such as engineering, computer science, psychology, perhaps, mathematics, you can identify shared universities, shared university resources and processes. But you should focus on developing the case for accreditation of the management or business school department or faculty within your particular university. We accredit schools that are directing their energy to developing excellent business leaders. Good self-assessment reports are generally self-critical and open to constructive recommendations. As Derek said, IQA accreditation is a journey. It's not a destination. So we don't expect you to be perfect, but we do expect that in writing the SAR, you have done the type of analysis that helps you to understand both your relevant strengths and improvement opportunities. Good SARs also provide concise responses to questions raised in the SAR guidelines and instructions. So we want you to develop most of your text content to answering questions and providing data that relate again to relevance, excellence, alternatively quality, and dynamics, evidence of continuous improvement. If we move to the structure of the self-assessment review, we do ask you to structure your report in alignment with the sequence of questions that are asked in parts A and B of the guidelines that you have already received for developing your report. For emphasis, some questions are repeated in the SAR instructions. You can address this by answering these questions one time only in your SAR, and you can decide where in the structure of the report to answer these questions. The page limit for the SAR text is 50 pages that can include some small data inserts and charts. Our suggestion is that you plan for about 15 pages for Part A, which is related to factual data, and then 35 pages for Part B, which is focused again on relevance, excellence, and dynamics. You're free to add some appendices to the SAR text up to 30 pages, and you can place large appendices in any Excel spreadsheets in a URL that can be accessed by the PRT members, the team that will visit your school prior to, during, and after the site visit. Let me move to Part A of the report. Within Part A, we want to assess whether management of the school and the faculty members of the school have a good understanding of the major issues and needs of the business community that you serve. This assessment is important because it provides a starting point for the peer review team to assess your efforts, again, relating to relevance, excellence of the educational programs, your research agendas, and other services that the school provides. As Derek implied earlier, IQA distinguishes between mission and vision. We see mission as a statement of what you do today. Vision is more a statement of what you aspire to become in the years to come in the future. If you have developed a formal statement of strategic priorities and action plans, provide this document in full as an appendix to your report, and provide a discussion of progress to date in meeting your objectives. When assessing institutional governance, IQA is interested in the key components of your government structure and what influence faculty, students, employees, and other stakeholders have in important strategic and operational decision-making within your institution. In assessing long-term financial viability, we're interested to know whether you are likely to generate sufficient funding and cash flow to sustain and enhance the resource base that you will need to meet your mission and vision objectives. On financial controls, we're interested in whether you use tools like contribution analysis as an example when you assess program additions and deletions. To assess brand value, what local, national, and international rankings or surveys do you use for comparisons? Do you have other indications that allow you to assess your relative brand reputation and recognition? You might also consider developing a SWOT assessment of your current competitive position, which can be added again as part of your appendices. Now we move to part 2, part B of the SAR, which again, and we repeat very often, is focused on the relevance, the excellence, quality of the school's educational offerings and related services. For part B, we will provide now some guidance on drafting the report, indications of expected data appendices, and some key related questions that the PRT will want to see addressed within your SAR. The peer review team would like to understand your customer segmentation. What percentage of your student enrollments are in bachelor, master degree, and higher degree programs, for example, PhD or DBA? What percentage of your students in these programs are international? Are there significant trends in these numbers? What is the percent of your participants that participate in student exchange programs with other institutions? We also want to understand the pattern of your student enrollment cycle by type of programs. How many student applications do you receive? How many of these applications do you convert into offers of acceptance? How many of the offers of acceptance convert into student enrollments? And how many of the students enrolled in your programs graduate from the program? You can make comparisons between your latest graduation cycle and some prior year cycle for trend analysis and other insights. In the SAR, you should report and comment on the rankings your school receives in local, national, and international rankings of business schools, if available. What have you learned from benchmarking your performance against that of schools, of leading schools that you truly admire and would like to build further on where you think they are better than what you are today? We're interested in the profile of your teaching faculty. For each faculty member, you should provide name, age, gender, nationality, most advanced academic degree, employment status, part-time or full-time, and primary area of academic expertise today. You can comment on trends in overall faculty profile data and changes that you would like to make in the future. For example, what criteria do you emphasize when you recruit new faculty and staff members? The PRT expects a full list of faculty research papers, either authored or co-authored by your faculty members, and a separate list of any case studies written by them over the last 2 or 3 years, including faculty name, title of the paper, and publication reference, journal, conference proceeding, or other publication reference. On the research agenda and outcomes, is your school more focused on research activities directed towards business practitioners or to achieve academic peer recognition? If you think your approach is balanced, then provide or develop arguments and examples that support this conviction. Does the research done by your faculty find its way into the classroom? And can you provide research titles that meet this objective and or provide examples of faculty research that focus on best business practices that would be of interest to business practitioners? How do you disseminate your school's research findings to students, to business practitioners, and to academic peers? Do your faculty and staff members benefit from bonuses or other forms of recognition for excellence in teaching, research, and administrative support? If so, a comment on how this is done in your institution. And for student evaluations of programs, we request a summary of ratings for at least 2 programs that you offer, typically 1 bachelor program, perhaps your largest one, and 1 master program, preferably programs that you teach in English, because this would facilitate limiting the amount of translation you have to do in some of the other requests that we're going to make. In providing student evaluations, provide us with average and quintile scores, for example, for a given program. Average is the overall average of a score. Quintile means you separate the scores into groups of 20%, top 20%, next 20%, etc. And you should do this for at least three courses, course outlines for each program that are based on individual course and faculty scores. So we expect that you have students evaluate your programs, and they also evaluate the individual courses and faculty members that you have on staff. To assess teaching and learning objectives and outcomes, we want to review a few samples of program designs and individual course outlines that indicate the blending of learning methods you use in programs and courses to stimulate and evaluate student performance. For example, lectures, discussions, case studies, simulation, gamification, student projects, and other interactive learning methodologies. In what ways is your school developing new learning approaches based on the use of AI, artificial intelligence? We welcome examples of student learning opportunities like student projects and student exchanges that demonstrate positive learning outcomes and examples of other impactful innovations you are making in learning methods. You should provide us with samples of program outlines, again, for at least 2 programs. These outlines would indicate the titles and duration of ECTS count for both required and elective courses. Separately, we ask you in the SAR to comment on to what extent do your educational programs, courses, and other activities support equal values related to business ethics, corporate social responsibility, and issues related to sustainability. Examples are what we need here to understand the depth of your involvement. Additionally, you should provide 2 or 3 examples of course outlines that students receive for each of the 2 programs you have decided to profile. The course outlines would indicate course topics, learning objectives, the breadth of teaching and learning methodologies, percent grading components, required textbooks, and readings with publication dates. You can provide summary data of key findings from other surveys that you have organized with students, alumni, or members of the business community. In the promotional material you use in brochures, social media, your website, and other communications with buyers, are the contents well aligned with your own delivery capabilities? In other words, do you deliver what you promise to your customers? In these communications, what do you as a school emphasize as differentiating your customer value proposition relative to the offerings of the business schools that you see as your major competitors? In the self-assessment review, it's also useful to highlight research paper titles, student project experiences, and innovations that support your assessment of the relevance and quality of the learning experiences that you provide for your students, local community members, and business organizations. Also, do you offer non-degree, open and tailored in-company programs for individuals and companies? you should provide assessment on whether you have adequate or even better physical and IT infrastructure, human resources, and networks to deliver your stated mission objectives. Where do you excel, and where do you see future improvement opportunities? Can you provide recent examples of changes in your underlying processes, including, for example, quality assurance, notable accomplishments, and innovative practices that demonstrate a culture and commitment to continuous improvement? And you should be doing this all the way through the SAR report. For us, it's a very high priority that you analyze the data you're providing to support your claims of organizational relevance, high quality of educational products and services that you provide in your markets. Finally, a well-written self-assessment review submission should help you to identify and focus on future improvement opportunities and priorities. You can expect also that the peer review team members that visit you can also provide recommendations for future improvements. This is a lengthy list. It's not fully comprehensive, but I think it covers the main things we would like you to focus on when you develop your SAR. Derek, is there anything that you would like to add at this level of...
I think, Jim, listening to this, it's quite a challenge to do all that you've said in 15 pages, but that is really the story. You know, we want to see the big picture, but we want you to come to the essential. That's what you've said several times. Take out of all these things those things which tell your story about relevance and excellence and movement, the essential. So it's like management. Getting to the essential is a big story for many managers. You know, they go round and round, but they're not able to boil it down to what is the essential. So it doesn't have to be long to get to the essential. You know, Voltaire once said, "Excuse me for not writing you, a short letter. I'm writing you a long letter. I didn't have time to write you a short one," which means that writing a short letter is more complicated because you have to boil out what is important. So I think you said it all beautifully, Jim. And what I listened to and really appreciated was we need evidence. So when you said titles of some of these research papers or publications, that tells us a lot. You know, if it's some little thing and it's so obscure and it appeals to the academic community because you're making the last little change in some small thing that's research. But if we see in the titles that these titles, a manager looking at the titles says, "Hey, I want to read that. That sounds interesting." You know, how to help me form a mission statement or whatever it is, you know. So we need titles and we need evidence. So don't put too much in, but make sure that it tells your story. I think that was your message, Jim. Huh?
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, a lot of detail can be put into appendices.
Absolutely.
But please analyze.
Yeah, take it out. Take
in
out
your
what is
summary.
Important and tell us in the main body what it is we're looking at, because you know we also want to see. You said something, Jim, I want to underline. We look very carefully at whether the leadership of the school and its faculty understand the business problems in their local community. So that statement, I think it was in part 1, where you tell us, because we're not familiar with your local markets. We need to understand what it is that business is looking for, what kind of issues business is confronting, and before we can evaluate whether you're helping them or not. So this is really up to you to give us a sort of the lowdown on the issues that the business community, management community is facing. That helps us a lot. And it tells us whether, you know, whether you're kind of, whether you're networked into reality or not. So that's, I think it was very complete what you said.
Okay, then I'd like to open it to a question and answer session.
Good.
And both of us will do our best to try to respond
Okay.
concisely to the questions that you're raising.
Maybe Shiva has
You
to,
can help us there, I think.
maybe
Yes.
Shiva has to read off these questions to us so
I
that
will
we,
read them out. I will read them out. Let me start with the question from Tom.
okay.
Yes. You mentioned about the percentage of students who proceed to doctorate programs. If we shall focus on raising the next generation of business managers and leaders, would this number likely be lower? Thank you.
Well, I think that's a really good question. I'm with you on, you know, not too many schools have doctoral programs as well as executive education and undergraduate. The good thing about it is it helps to get some of the research done. You know, the people doing their doctoral degrees are helping the whole research effort. But it's not a condition for us. If they have a doctoral program, we like to hear about it. It's not a condition. I think that's what's important in your question. Not at all. We are accrediting schools that don't have doctoral programs, and we've accredited schools that do have doctoral programs. It's not a condition. Jim?
Yeah, I mean, in looking at that data, it also tells us a little bit about how selective you are in admitting students. It tells us something about your brand relevance. How many offers can you convert into students joining your program, which is related to the market share issue that Derek mentioned earlier in his thoughts. So it's getting a sense of the trends. Are these dynamics changing in your organization? Do you feel that you're getting better?
Yeah. Jim, I'm going to say something here, which is not for a question, but it's an addition. I've been working with quite a few schools, not just on the accreditation, but trying to help them find their way forward, you know, and as a consultant or as a coach. And many problems occur at the question of promotion. Not so much hiring, or hiring is also an important story. What are the criteria for hiring? But in many schools, they say the shit hits the fan, that meaning the real story is, do you have one system for promoting people, which is basically only oriented to research and not about the teaching? And, you know, on the other side, you're saying we want to be a practice-oriented school. There's a kind of dilemma there for many schools. And it's a dilemma which is not easy to resolve, because some of the local accreditation authorities not understanding too well what practice means. That's not, you know, they also come from universities many times which are not practice oriented. So you have to kind of fight a bit of an uphill struggle. But the way forward is pretty clear. Do research and teach relevance. It's much more difficult to do relevant research than to pick around in little bits and pieces of, you know, discipline-based marketing or finance and so on. Because if you do relevant research, it really stands out, not just because it also stands out in the academic community, by the way. So I think there's a way through here is to realize that we value research, but it's what type of research. You know, a school which doesn't have any research, or they have a teaching faculty and a research faculty, we're not so much in favor of that. We like to see schools where the people who do the best teaching are also doing the best research, you know. And that doesn't mean at some point in a career you do more of one and a bit less of the other. That happens too, and that's quite okay. But on average, we like to see faculties that can join research and the classroom together, and to be proud practice-driven research and get it into good academic journals as well as out to the management community. This is kind of what we're looking for. But we understand this is not easy, and there are dilemmas to be solved, especially with sometimes local accreditation authorities who don't really know what they're looking for, so they kind of load demands on you which are not in your best interest always. Yeah, you have to stand up for what you believe in.
Okay, maybe I can read the next question.
Thank
you. How do you detect whether the self-assessment report is prepared by AI support? What do you do if it is the case?
Yeah, that's a good. Jim, do you want to try that? And I'll say something in a minute.
Yeah. Look, I mean, AI can help you, for example, to refine your English, but the essence of the journey you're not going to find from a chatbot.
No.
This is internal to your organization. So we encourage you, if you want, use AI to help you with the English, but don't rely on it to write a good report for you. It won't do that.
The question, Jim, is what is the narrative? That's what we're looking for.
Now, what is the narrative?
What's the narrative? What is the story you want to tell about your school, which would convince us that you're one, relevant, second, excellent, and on the way to the future? That AI can't do that because they don't understand what these things might look like, This is where you have to go, and you're absolutely right, Jim. It's just fine if it's smoothed out with better presentation. That's just quite okay.
What you're into is also an emotional journey, and AI is not good at helping with that type of writing.
And also, not to forget, you will need to provide the evidence of what is written in the report. So AI can hallucinate a wonderful report for you, but it will not be supported by any
evidence,
data. And that will be pretty obvious very fast to anybody who reads it on our end. So we can very easily actually detect the reports that are written with too much support of AI, let's say.
I mean, AI can help you with some fact finding. For example, if you're looking for ratings information across schools, AI can speed up that process.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Could you please remind us what is the page limit for the individual parts of the submission? I can answer that. The self-assessment report has a limit of 50 pages. So please really stick to these 50 pages. You can add appendices to that, 30 pages of appendices, and make sure the report is concise and understandable without the appendices as well. So any appendices you need to reference in the report, so they're also easy to find. And then
these are maximums, Siva. These are maximums. We like short to the point reports. It doesn't have to be so long. You can get the story across in much less if you come to the essential. Tell your story, which will convince us you're relevant, excellent, on the way to the future.
Exactly.
If I can build on this also, a reminder that spend less time, less pages on the factual information and more pages on your assessment of your strengths and improvement opportunities.
Good.
I have another important question that I received over the email. Maybe we can answer that as well. The question is, for which period should we report data in general in SAR? In case of reaccreditation, should it be all the data since the last accreditation, let's say 5 to 6 years, or should we present data from the last 2 to 3 years only?
Okay. Typically, 2 to 3 years should be sufficient, unless you want to focus on longer term trends that you find are positive to your situation. When it comes to, I don't know, student evaluations, we wouldn't expect 5 years. Maybe 2 semesters would be enough to get a sense of that. Similarly with submitting course outlines and program outlines, the current one would be sufficient. We don't need. So use your own common sense. Ask yourself, what would I want if I was a member of a PRT team? You'll probably be right.
Okay, we have another question that we received over the email, and they're saying we have over 400 faculty members. Do we need to provide CVs for all of them?
No, you don't. What we are suggesting is a document with 1 line per faculty member. That would indicate, again, key indicators, age, gender, nationality, part-time or full-time, area of expertise. That would be sufficient. So I know if you have 400 faculty members.
Jim, it might be that these 400 are not all in the management faculty. That's what you were saying earlier. We're accrediting management faculties, and
but we do
the Harvard Business School only has 250 faculty, and it's pretty big. I'm surprised at a school, you know, wherever you are, that has 400 faculty in management itself. You know, so focus down on the management faculties.
Yeah, by all means, management faculty only. And if this creates problems for you, probably a focus on the full-time faculty members rather than the part-time faculty members. But it shouldn't take a huge amount of time, even with a large number of faculty, to develop 1 line per faculty member.
Okay, thank you. This is all in terms of the questions. Maybe some final thoughts from the 2 of you?
No, from me. We wish you luck and good judgment when you're describing your journey. And Juva and I are open always. If you have questions that come up later, let us know, and we'll see if we can help you. On the comments that I've made today, I do have a text, and perhaps, Shiva, we could distribute that also to those who have joined the webinar today.
Jim, I have one closing comment, and which is not about the SARs, about this, but about the IQA in general. You know, we are different than the other accreditation systems and agencies. So these 3 things are not in there. They talk about other things. So we're the only one. In a way, when you get this accreditation, it's a brand recognition to your customers. It's very important that you can say to your customers, we've been accredited by the CEEMAN IQA, and this accreditation is different than the others because they do value relevance to practice. They do want institutions which stand out from others in clear ways, and it shows that we're a school that's on the way to the future. These are really important statements. You know, the IQA accreditation, just the fact you have this certificate means a lot. It means these 3 things, something that your customers are really will find important. So I think we're onto something with the IQA, which other accreditations are not doing. We're trying to give a brand recognition to schools that are doing the things that companies like, and you have a chance then to market this to them, to say we have this accreditation. And so that's what I think. In that way, we're really different. We stand out from EQUIS or from the ASCSB and the UMBA, and in these 3 respects. And these are respects that customers are really interested in. So you should use this, you know. Okay.
Thank you so much. I wanted to use this opportunity also to invite all of you to maybe consider and join us at our seminars that we're organizing here in Blythe. We have Program Management Seminar coming up in April, and we have IMTA, International Management Teachers Academy, that is taking place here in June. So I will send you information about these programs over email. And yes, like Jim said, we're always available. Any questions you have, please just reach out and we're happy to help you.